welcome to a whole new book video. It is October. We have chosen our October reads for the month. We've done our TBR video. So all that's left to do is officially wrap up September and have a big old chat about everything that I read. I read 6 books in September, so it was not that bad. Like maybe it wasn't like the best reading month I've had in the world, but I'm still actually pretty proud of 6 books, and I think I did quite well. I literally managed to squeeze the final book into, we're talking like the last few hours of September. We were cutting it quite fine. Make sure you have got a nice cozy drink with you. I will be honest, I may or may not have just temporarily boosted the heating for this video, just temporarily, because I was like, I'm going to be sat still and I'm going to be absolutely freezing. It is not warm in this room, so I have a radiator on just behind where you're sitting in front of me, and I have to say it's so cozy. It feels amazing. So I am well and truly set up to have a good old natter with you. Let's just jump straight into the first book. So the first book that I read in September was Rule of the Aurora King by Nisha J. Tooley. This is book 2 in the Artifacts of Uranus series, so there's not a huge amount that I can tell you about the plot without ruining book 1. But it follows Law and Nadir. There is very, very much an enemies to lovers vibes. Like, this is serious enemies to lovers. She absolutely despises him. You also get much more history in this book, so it takes you way back in time to when the Sun Queen trials actually started. And we follow our female main character within that time period, Cersei, who is a very, very interesting character to read about. I would definitely say that book 2 is quite character driven versus being plot driven. There is still quite a lot that happens, but there's a lot of character growth that has to happen within this book, and there's a lot that you need to learn about newer characters that you didn't really know an awful lot about in book 1. But I am definitely going to continue reading. It's a great, I would say, like entry-level fantasy because it's not too complex, I don't think. And the books aren't too long. It's really well written. It's a great plot. And I did not by any means give this book a bad rating. I gave Rule of the Aurora King a 3.75. It wasn't quite at the 4-star for me just because of a few things, like I said, that niggled me. But 3.5 is definitely still like a great rating. It does not mean that I did not enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. I raced through it. I read it in 2 days. I read it from the 4th of September to the 6th of September, so I definitely read it quite quickly and I had a great time, and 3.75 is a pretty solid rating. And yeah, as I said, I will be reading book 3, so that was the very first book that I read. Now, the second book that I read in September was in fact an ARC. It was an advanced reader's copy of a book that is due to come out, I believe, on the 31st of October. It's great for this time of year. It's witchy, it's fantasy, it's not too intense, it's really fun. So it was Daughter of Stone by B.A. Pepper. I have listened to B.A. Pepper's podcast with her fellow friend for quite a while, and I was so excited to see that she had written a book, and it's a really great book. It follows our main character Non, who is brought up within like the witch community in a family of witches, and when she is very young she basically fails the initiation test that you get for developing your witchy powers. You kind of have to prove that you have a certain skill set or you have a certain power to be able to then continue your like witch training, and she basically realizes that she doesn't have any powers, so she gets thrust back into the real world. It's set in the modern world, modern times, and she is living a normal life. She is living with her mum and I think her aunt or something, and basically at one point one day something happens and basically an explosion of power comes out that she did not realise she had. She gets thrust back to go and see her grandmother, back into the witch world, and she is told that since she has demonstrated that she does in fact have powers, which is like a huge shock to everyone, a huge shock to her, she now has to compete in some trials. These trials are trials that all witches compete into to basically almost like win the favour of a god and like enhance your powers. We do also come across our male main character. When Non meets him, she is like, I don't like you, but you're interestingly attractive. It's definitely a fast-paced plot, so if you like a bit of world building, but you also like to just jump straight into a plot and you like things to move along quite quickly without kind of being too intense, this is a great read for you. And it also ends on a really, really interesting cliffhanger. I would say, personally for me, kind of one of the main reasons why it slightly marked down for me was just personal preference. I love a proper enemies to lovers. I love a slow burn. I love like real tension. And for Non and Dylan, there was kind of like an immediate attraction, which absolutely, to be fair, like totally understand that. But it was almost like an immediate obsession. It was an immediate like, oh my goodness, I can't get this person out of my head sort of thing. And sometimes I just prefer a slower burn, but as I said, that is just me. But overall, great book, really, really great for a debut book as well, I have to say. The cover and the artwork is absolutely beautiful. And I give this a 3.75. So again, a great star rating. It does not mean in any way that I disliked the book. That is like a positive rating for me, a solid rating for me. But yeah, I decided to go with 3.75. Book number 3 of the month was Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I had actually put this on my TBR a couple of times, I think, and I've not gotten around to reading it. Boy, was I missing out. I can't believe I did not pick this up sooner. I thought, you know what? We're into spooky season, like we're into cozy season. I really need to pick this book up because it definitely gives off that vibe. I don't think this book has left my head since I finished it. I finished it on the 15th of September. This follows our female main character, Signa, who you get a bit of history about right at the beginning of the book. So she is pretty much orphaned and she has been shipped around guardian after guardian after guardian, and basically everywhere she goes, death follows. Death is the being and the person that is there at the end of a person's life who basically takes them from one world to another world, to the afterlife, and helps their spirit to move on as such. And the interesting thing about Signa is that she is the first human that death has ever come across that can't die. Like, she cannot die. And she absolutely fascinates death. This book has kind of a bit of murder mystery vibes. It has kind of like a spooky but a light-hearted sort of spookiness. If you are a Stephanie Garber fan, I am telling you, you will love this book. I absolutely can't believe how much I enjoyed it. There is a romantic storyline which I genuinely did not think I was going to enjoy half as much as I did, and there are some great twists. There is one big twist that quite literally threw me to the floor. Like, I did not see it coming, and I just remember almost screeching when I read it. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And I just love it when that happens, when it just throws you, like it absolutely knocks you for six and you were not expecting it. I love the world, I love the plot, I love the murder mystery kind of vibe to it. I loved the relationship that Signa had with death. It is very much like an enemies to allies to something potentially more sort of vibe. I gave this a 4.75. I would be shocked if I continue with this series and I don't end up with at least one more of the books being a 5-star read. It was absolutely brilliant. Moving on to the next book that I read, the 4th book that I read in September was a great one. It was so good. It was Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. I finally got round to reading this book, and I have to say, It is as good as it is beautiful. It did not disappoint. This is a really, really interesting concept for a book. So it follows Odessa, who is a princess. She has a sister and she has a father. Her mother is kind of no longer on the scene. Historically, there have been cases every generation whereby some really, really awful, horrific monsters that were created by the gods a very long time ago come and just wreak absolute havoc in the lands. It happens once every generation, and there is another one looming. Now, there is a treaty that quite a few of like the continents all kind of get involved in. Two of them in particular have basically made an agreement whereby one person from one continent and one person from another continent come together and marry and form an alliance, and it basically allows them to keep peace between the lands. So trade can pass. This country will benefit from getting weapons from this country, and in exchange they'll give food to this country. It's just like a peace agreement basically, and it is the turn of Odessa's land to put someone forward to marry. Now, her sister is the one that is supposed to be getting married to someone that is coming from the other land. However, in a bit of a drastic turn of events, the prince and his guardian decide that Odessa is the one that is to be married and is to be taken to the other country, which throws a complete spanner in the works. There is like absolute chaos when it happens. Odessa is like, what are you talking about? I'm not supposed to be the chosen princess. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about this. And she basically has to sign the treaty with her own blood, agree to marry this prince that she knows absolutely nothing about, and disappear off to this other land that is completely new to her. This book, particularly the last like 75 pages of this book, I have never had such Sarah J. Maas vibes as I had with this book. Like, I could not believe how crazy the ending of this was. My jaw was on the floor. I was like in shock. I actually cried a little bit at one point, which does not often happen with me with books. I was stressed, I was screaming, but it was like in a way that was really great. Does that make any sense? I honestly did not predict any of the twists in this book. I genuinely did not. I knew that there were probably going to be some coming, but I did not predict them whatsoever. And I am just absolutely gasping for book 2. Don't get me wrong, this is a very large book. There's a lot of world building that does need to happen, but I would say that it's done really well because you're thrown into the plot at the same time really well. And there's a great balance between the world building and the plot. And so you don't have kind of this heavy world building to kind of trudge through before the plot kicks in. I actually found myself gripped straight away, which is not common for me with fantasy books of this size. But in general, 4.75, absolutely flippin' loved it. I will be reading book 2 ASAP when it comes out. I absolutely cannot wait, and I definitely recommend this book. What a fun time. Book number 5 that I read in September. Moving on to a very, very different genre, I read an Ali Hazelwood book. This was my enemies to lovers pick for September, thanks to my prompts, and it was definitely enemies to lovers. This follows Elsie. This is a STEM romance, so this is very sciencey. Elsie is a physicist, and there is a lot of like lingo and things. It's quite wordy and it's quite heavy. So I'm actually really, really glad that I audiobooked this. But yeah, Elsie is kind of like running 2 jobs. So job number 1 is she is a physicist. She is running loads and loads of classes, and she is absolutely desperate to get her dream job that comes up at a university that she is interviewing for. Now, whilst that's all going on, she also has a bit of a side job, and she basically is like a fake girlfriend. She realises that she is actually up against another candidate, and one of the professors that is going to be grading her and basically deciding whether she does or doesn't get the job is the mysterious Jack. It's her fake boyfriend's brother, who she is pretty convinced hates her. Now, she realises that she is in a bit of a problem because Jack knows her as someone else. He knows her to be a librarian. He knows her to be this complete made-up character that his brother is dating. So he is immediately incredibly suspicious of her, and they have a lot of things to work out along the way. Now, I rated this, I've got my review in front of me, I rated this a 3.75. For my first Ali Hazelwood read, I think that's quite a good rating. It wasn't like my favourite romance book in the world, but I will definitely be reading some more of her books. I absolutely loved the spice in this. It was brilliant. It wasn't too heavy, and I have heard from some of Ali's other books that the spice is very, very heavy, whereas this was most definitely plot driven. And when you do eventually get to the spice, personally, I think it's way worth it. It was brilliant. There were maybe a couple of odd moments where Elsie was giving me some red flags that I maybe wasn't sure about, but overall, I really enjoyed it. It was great. The ending was quite fast. The ending, I would have liked to have gotten a little bit more out of the ending. It didn't, I don't know if rushed is the right word, but it seemed to kind of be quite abrupt at the ending, and I was just a bit like, oh, okay, fair enough. Like, everything kind of got resolved very, very quickly, and then that was the end of it. But in general, I had a great time. I'm glad that I audiobooked it, as I said, because it wasn't as heavy, I think, as it would have been if I had been reading like the inner dialogue of Elsie's physicist brain and sciencey brain. But yeah, I would recommend it. It's a great enemies to lovers read, and I will be reading the other books for sure. We are on the last book of September. I finally managed to read Silver Elite by Danny Francis, my gorgeous sprayed edge copy. I finally finished it, and I finished this right at the end of the month, but once I got sucked in, I actually read this really, really quickly. So this, again, is something completely different. If you are like a Divergent fan, I do think you'll really enjoy this. This had such mixed reviews, but for me, I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I was hooked pretty much from the get-go, and I knew, honestly, from the first few chapters that this was probably going to be at least a 4-star read for me, and it absolutely was. So this follows Ren. She lives in a world whereby you have basically normal people and you have modified people who have the ability to read minds. They have like telepathy, or they can basically do like mind magic. There has been a lot of kind of politics involved back and forth over history in terms of who is in charge, who rules. But in the current day, it is not a great thing to be a modified person, to have those like psychic, mind reading, mind talking abilities. They have to hide, otherwise they are either sent to a labour camp as a slave, or they are killed pretty much on the spot, or go onto a trial and inevitably get killed. Now, it's really interesting because you see this war in Ren's mind of who really are the good people here and who are the bad people. She has grown up thinking, you know, she's part of the modified race. The primes are killers, like ruthless killers who will kill her on the spot if they find out who she is. But the more she uncovers, the more she starts to realise that there are so many layers to it, and there is so much politics involved. And all may not quite be as she thought it was, and there are actually a lot more players in the game than she initially thought as well. I gave it a 4.25 stars, so this was a really solid rating for me. I was hooked from the start, and I thought the plot was like the best part for me. The romance was good. I didn't feel like an immediate connection to the male main character, which is partly what brought the rating down. But once you kind of get, I would say maybe to like the 70% mark, you start to uncover his layers. You start to learn more about him. He softens. You see the more emotional side to him, and you do eventually fall in love with him. I would say the only other downside is that I did guess one of the twists, and so it didn't quite have that real hard impact that I think it was supposed to have when you were reading it. But it didn't take away from it too much. Like, I had kind of worked it out. All in all, loved it. Like, 4.25 is an amazing rating. I'm definitely going to be reading book 2 because it has been set up really well. It is set up with another twist right at the end of the book. I'm so intrigued to see where it goes. There's going to be even more world building. There's going to be even more characters to uncover, and it is going to be a great time. I am so excited. So yeah, that was the final book, and we ended most definitely on a high. So yeah, that was everything that I read in September. 6 books that I very much enjoyed. Like 3.75 was the worst rating, which is just amazing. And we had some almost 5 stars in there. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know if you've read any of these books, what you thought, or if you're going to read any of these books. And of course, as always, pop a comment down below and let me know what you're currently reading, because I am always looking for more books to add to my list. I will see you very soon in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your week, enjoy your day, and yeah, catch you soon. Goodbye.